dignitaries on the dais and my dear all young and wise friends. It's indeed a great difficult task to keep your attention post-lunch session. Nevertheless, I will try. I want to share something really interesting with you. If you are a police officer and you are dealing with smart city mission, then you develop some extra sensory perceptions. So we have informants. So informants shared that there's a lot of excitement in Indraloka. A good number of gods and goddesses, they want to descend on our smart cities. They're only choosing which one to go. When we see the presentations and the details of the presentations, they really give us a lot of hope, and they give us a sense that we are moving in the right direction and our country is really on the verge of transformation. In my presentation, there are a few aspects which I want to share with you and would like to have your viewpoint on that. In the agenda, I've tried to cover briefly the history and the mission history, then the structure, features, and the key challenges and solutions, and what role the technology plays in that. Then we see that there are two models which are really popular. One is propounded by the Cisco. The other one is propounded by the Microsoft, and there are in between many players are there. The smart city is essentially compared to be a kind of an enterprise because it's already listed as a company. So we can compare it like an enterprise. Then I would like to share with you the enterprise view of the smart city and what architecture is being followed when we talk of smart city, and how we see the future when we talk of enterprise architecture of smart city mission. Well, this has been spoken by most of the speakers that we have come a long way from discovery of fire and wheel and light bulb and steam engines to Internet of Things. So latest is the Internet of Things. These are various technological advancement that we have seen in last 1 decade, and which I've tried to list, and I find that roughly about 19 we can summarize that these are 19 technological advancement, of which Internet of Things are there, smart factories, cloud computing, digital products, and a whole lot of things are there, which have already been spoken by a good number of speakers. So what do we find in smart city mission? There's a role for the government and its agencies, central government, state government, urban local bodies, and the citizen as well. And then we talk of facilities that need to be created within the city setup, and where technology is going to propel the anticipation and aspirations and expectations of its citizen. Well, of course, this history has been talked about by a good number of speakers that Prime Minister started, and almost 100,000 crore budget, and it's a 5-year development program. So after 5 years, every smart city is going to be put under scrutiny, where the achievements will be assessed, and we'll have to maybe reset our assessment and parameters to redevelop the next set of projects. And of course funding share, etc. is there. One critical factor that we find here is that unlike the earlier missions and earlier projects regarding renewal of the city's life and urban life and the village life, most of which have been top down. So we were given certain models and we were supposed to implement it, but this one is bottoms up. So like you have to have from the ground reality the expectations, aspirations, needs, etc. need to be analyzed and then worked upwards and then integrate all the features and then try to make it happen as we want it. So it's a bottom-up approach, and there's plenty of flexibility, and it also deserves to be mentioned that you know, the cities are selected, not just like that. They had to face a stiff competition from other cities, and based on certain very unique features of each city, that they have been selected as smart city in different complex systems of selection by a board. So smart city structure is basically systematic urbanization, which is very critical. Then service delivery is, of course, at the center of it, a conducive ecosystem, comprehensive infrastructure, clean environment, which is a concern as we see in Delhi, and smart solutions, inclusive development. There should be, all the efforts should be made to have adequate funding for the results that we want. And it has to be like, first we have to do a pilot projects. Like in the ancient architecture, if you see, the architect will make a very small specimen kind of a thing with all the detailed specifications as a pilot, and then he goes on to build the monumental structures. So any big temples you visit of ancient India, you will find that one slab of the stone is devoted to the pilot understanding. So something similar has been adopted here also, and culture of innovation, and it's an area development plan, and which should have replicability and scalability. So it should be replicated in other area, and it should also be scaled upwards. So if we want to integrate more areas into our smart city, how it exists now, so if we want to make it bigger and wider, then it should allow that. So that is the key objective of our this thing. And of course, citizen-centric services are there: water supply, electricity, and mobility, education, transport, and all that. So what exactly is the concept when we decide about the mission and its objective? The concept is that nothing should be wasted. Like energy, energy never gets created or destroyed. So same way, it changes as the form. So same way, in our society as well, we should be able to develop energy from the West. So West should not be wasted. It's a misnomer to call a waste because it should not be wasted. It can create energy. Then calibrated surveillance, empowered citizens. The citizen should feel that he is capable of getting himself looked after by government agencies. So empowered citizen. Of course, the cost reduction, it should have a good cost-benefit ratio. It should deliver to us. And it should be IT based, because we should take maximum advantage of the technologies that are there at our disposal. And overall, every citizen should feel that he is better off as far as the quality of life is concerned compared to before the mission started. These are the functions of smart city, once again, which is no different than what is the service delivery. There are certain specifications of smart city. Either it should be a retrofit, it should be redevelopment, or it should be greenfield project, or it should be a overall planned city kind of a thing. So one has to either choose one of these four, or you can choose a combination, or you can choose all the four also, depending upon your funding positions. So most of the cities that we have seen today morning since presentations have been done, we find that they have been a combination of renewal of the city and the greenfield projects. And some are also the retrofitting, somewhere the retrofitting has been. Retrofitting means whatever has been existing, you try to improve upon that only. So some retrofit also we saw, but most of the presentations that they have put since morning, they suggest that it's a renewal of the projects. New projects have been added up, new areas have been brought under smart city kind of a project, and some are also the pan city, so entire city is covered under that. And of course, it's a strategy-based, collaborative, unity in funding, and very high-level experts which are approved by Ministry of Urban Development. They have been empaneled as consultants, and a special purpose vehicle has been created in terms of a company and a CEO for that. and the board has been created for smart city. So all these features are there which have been specified when the mission was started. Now, what are the key challenges of smart city? Again, this has also been covered by most of the speakers. However, I would just like to, at the cost of repeating, I would like to share with you. We have limited resources, so we need smart city to use the resources productively. We have very poor infrastructure, so we need to improve infrastructure. So these are the obvious things that that are the challenges, and the solutions are to be found in better governance, how we decide a policy, what kind of policy we are adopting. So there is a shift in the way we look at the policy making now, and the management of the projects. Once again, the things have come as like it's been declared as a project. CEOs have been appointed, so it's not like a deputy commissioner who's already tasked with multiple assignments is looking after smart city also. So there is somebody to do the nut and bolt management of the system and then make living better. And here technology has been specifically emphasized. Organizational structures have been created. So whatever it requires for a good project to be implemented, those features, the prescribed features, need to be adopted. Once again, technology has been given a very key role, so I will not repeat this slide. The sensors, electronics, surveillance, algorithms, and tracking, database, all these things have been covered in detail. Here I would like to share with you two systems which I tried to understand and analyze while doing this presentation on smart city. There are two major players here. One is Cisco, another one is Microsoft, and there, of course, in between there are there. But I find that the Cisco is more target oriented, so there they have a target objective and they try to achieve that target. But what is most interesting is that they have also tried to work the cost-benefit ratio of working a smart city mission. And they say that the benefits are 3 times the amount of cost that has been incurred on their projects. But I was very surprised to see that there's a disclaimer also that this ratio is not worked out in great mathematical detail, so it's kind of an approximation. So I would request the Cisco representatives to kindly get us the exact mathematical approximation of cost-benefit ratio so that your projects and your work, whatever you have done, can be further quantified in terms of its utility to the society. Then we have this Microsoft, which I found that is mostly technology driven, and they have their own Azure cloud computing system, and with the help of few other players integrated into the system. But it's quite it's a model which essentially quite heavily depend on technology and try to facilitate the citizen to be able to interact in terms of resources, especially financial resources, and ability to pay from home by using the mobile technology. So this is something which is a very key feature of Microsoft while dealing with the smart city missions. And then, of course, they try to make it very easy for the decision makers to work with the smart city. So with this background, we conclude that smart city mission is an enterprise, and there are many systems within a big system working every moment. So each moment of time, you have many systems simultaneously working within a bigger system of smart city, and it's an intersection of technology and urban life, and it's project based, and we can kind of data integration is a key feature of that. Now the key word is enterprise architecture. So I don't know what is your opinion or your viewpoint when you see the presentations that what kind of architecture was presented before you. One of the speaker did mention the word few times that he has a certain data architecture and is working on that. But is data architecture enough to give us a smart city concept? Do we need an enterprise architecture where every part of the project or every part of, if we compare it with a building, So every part of the building is designed or planned or provided for or technology adopted, or the technicians briefed, or the engineering design part has been done properly, and then finally operationalized to get a system which will not fail us. So are we making a system architecture which is kind of a fail-proof, or is it helping us really be better than what we are now? So this is the concept where we have to understand enterprise architecture. Now, enterprise architecture is a comprehensive view of the enterprise strategy, business processes, systems, technology, implementations, and operations across various functions or various departments within a company, or for the instant case, we can say within the smart city. Now, I would like to introduce a dear elderly friend of mine and also the founder of this field, enterprise architecture, Zachman, who was the director with the IBM. And time is there. Time is okay? Yeah. So when he developed the system, then he developed a matrix system of 6x6, which really helps in dealing with the very complex systems. So whenever you have an issue of complexities, then this framework has been found to be most relevant, and they're adopted by most of the organizations across the globe. And in fact, it looks as if all the organizations who think that they are complex, they are working with this model. So for me, when I look at smart city missions and its components and the aspirations and the way citizens are looking at it and expecting from it, then I find that even the smart city missions are very complex systems. And we really need to understand this complexity. We need to understand how the various components of this enterprise interact with each other, work with each other, and impact the delivery system or service delivery system. So when Zachman built this framework, I'll just explain you very briefly that you will find various rows and columns are there. So this, let us first take the rows. The first row is that of the strategy owners. So who's owning the smart city mission strategy? Is the government and the government functionary. So who's planning for smart city today? So in our case, it is citizens have been planning and they have certain expectations. So we can say that in bottom-up approach, our strategy planners are none other than the citizens themselves. But are they doing it all by themselves? No, they are not doing all by themselves. They have mayors are there, the city corporation commissioners are there, then government representatives are there. So they are part of the strategy perspective, or the first row, row 1 is strategy perspective, which is basically the owner of the project, who himself owns and who's accountable for its working and success of the project. Then the second row is that of a management perspective, that is the planning part of it. So who has been planning for it? Who has been doing things for it? So we saw many deputy commissioners, collectors and all, they made presentations. So they, in a way, you can relate to them as somebody who has been planning for it on day-to-day basis with various factors. Then the next part comes the architect part. So who's designing? Who's designing the project? So we find that here I will try to show you as we progress through the presentation, that here we find that the design part is kind of missing. Who's designing the project? It's not putting a diagram on a piece of paper. It's about putting the entire architecture design. So when we say that we are working for electricity or we are working for water management, then we find that it's only water management. We don't find anywhere electricity in that. So what happens when you mix electricity and water design? What happens when you mix transport, water, electricity design? So whatever service deliveries are there, about 51 service delivery, somebody mentioned in their presentation. So 51 service delivery systems that you design together and bring it together, then how your technology works, how your system works. Are we going to have a separate dashboard for each of the functions? It'll be huge. It'll be massive. It'll occupy the whole room maybe. So are we going to see those screens 51 times to understand the technology and how it's impacting the service delivery? So this is where the architecture of the enterprise plays a very, very critical role, and we need to understand that. So I personally felt, I don't know your opinion, and you can have your own views on when you go through this issue, that are we having the designs done properly for our smart city mission. Then the engineering perspective, like the engineers, the technologists, they are involved. They are developing the broad systems. And then we have vendors, that is the row 5 is technical perspective. So technicians. So is the engineer going to lay the bricks? Is he going to fix the nut bolt there on day-to-day basis? Is he going to join the pipes for water supply? Is he going to weld the wires? Is he going to put the solar system somewhere? So there is a class of people, and they have their own perspective. They may not know the big enterprise architecture. They may not know the whole design and program and plan and expectation and aspirations, but they're very, very critical for you. So I find that this technical perspective, somewhere there is a disconnect, that the vendors are making smart city mission look as if it's a technician's perspective. So whole smart city has been reduced to row 5, and when we actually grow a little bigger and we have more integration of the systems and we have more wider area under smart city mission, because smart city is supposed to be a growth center. And then the expectation is that this growth center will lead to trickle down impact on surrounding areas. So it's not going to end with just one Nashik city becoming smart city. So slowly you have to add surrounding areas into that. So what happens to your technology at that time? Who's planned for that? So that kind of a planning, row 1 planning needs to be integrated with row 5. And then of course finally the row 6 is there, which is nothing but instantiation. That means the completion of the operations and things start working. And the vertical columns are there, nothing but these are 6 age-old interrogatives: who, what, when, who, why, how. So when you say what, that means you are defining various aspects. Who has to do it? So stakeholders. Then when, the time distribution, location where, when we say where, then it is a location distribution system. So which all places are being integrated in your architecture. And when we talk of how, then that leads to the processes, that how the processes are being built. So each of the processes have to be designed, they have to be strategized, planned, designed, and specifications have to be incorporated. And then technicians' viewpoint and technicians' updation on that particular process has to be done to ensure that you receive it as you wanted it. Otherwise, you will get something else in hand. So after explaining the framework and the smart city mission in the light of the framework, these are basic services that government is supposed to provide. These are key focus area of our smart city mission. There are quite a few. Yeah, so suppose for example we take health and family welfare. So row 1, the strategy and goals. Row 2, processes, system, technology, and how the technicians are going to implement your instructions or your design. And then finally the operation of the system. So for each of your key sector, key service delivery system, you have to build a system like this. Now I don't know, you can go on adding. I've just taken 11 because the width of the screen could take only that much. So you can go on adding as many as you want. And you imagine what kind of technology that you're going to get, what kind of integration are going to happen there, what kind of collaborative efforts are going to happen there. So that is what makes me feel that this smart city mission is really a very, very complex system. It's not about imitation. It's not about because you are an expert in water distribution system that makes you an enterprise architect or smart city mission. I think that will be a fallacy. So we really need to work together. We really need to get all integrated on the same page, and then we need to build a strategy for the smart city mission. So it's just a brief presentation I have given. This slide only gives you that how each of these fields have 6 perspectives, and each of these perspectives have 6 interrogatives. So 6 into 6 into 11, I don't know how many processes you are going to work, because intersection of each interrogative and the perspective, the cell that you get, that cell itself is an enterprise architecture's responsibility. So each cell has to be developed in great details, and then it has to be integrated and worked. This is just a depiction of that, how it goes. So this is about interconnection of the various components of the enterprise. This really looks complex, and we should be aware of that. So another aspect of this is like how there has been a dynamic shift in the smart city missions EA pattern. So when we talk of strategy, it is no more the annual strategy like it used to happen in the legacy period. Now it's a modern time, technology is shifting, everything is changing, a lot of things are very dynamic. So the idea is to make it from annual to daily, so that way it enhances your responsibility, and if you want the speed, then your strategy should be annual to daily, then approach should be theoretical to pragmatic. Initiatives need to be disruptive, not structured. Why it needs to be disruptive is that suppose you change one of the components, one of the primitives of your enterprise, then how does it impact your entire enterprise? Suppose one item is added or deleted from your smart city mission, one service delivery system is added, one feature is added, then how does it impact your entire smart city mission? So that we need to have a clarity about that. So we have to keep preparing our systems for disruptive systems. Suppose the technology changes, what do you do? The solar technology, whatever it is today, suppose it undergoes a change. Then how do you integrate that part? So is your architecture agile enough? Now this is a big hall. Somebody has really designed it very scientifically, that if you want to have bigger crowd in this hall only, you only need to remove few panels. So they have got these grooves done and all. So when they want to make it smaller, they just bring in those panels and they close it. So hall is still usable, and you don't pay for the whole thing. So similarly, if you want to expand it, you remove the panel. So is our enterprise, is our architecture, is our smart city mission ready for that? Today's, say, city X. Tomorrow another suburban area has to be added because that is also growing there, and people's expectations are growing. They want services there, and the decision makers, they take a call that yes, add this part also, another 5,000 acres of land into your smart city mission. What do you do that? I'm so sorry, I did not prepare for additional 500 acres. So these kind of situations will arise when we deal with smart city missions, and we have to prepare for that. That's my viewpoint. And the rest of it is basically a repetition of the same thing which have been already spoken about. And the organizer has already alerted me that I am taking long. So thank you very much. It was great pleasure being here and share with you on enterprise architecture few viewpoints. Thank you very much.